Heartwarming Millionaire discovers incredible truth after fiancé's shocking attack on his mom. Jake Thornton stood by the door of the community center, heart racing with excitement. Today was the day he had been waiting for, a celebration of his mother, Ruth, who had devoted her life to raising him in their small Midwestern town. The hall was adorned with balloons and streamers, laughter echoing off the walls. He could almost feel his mother's pride in the air, mingling with the overwhelming scent of cake and fresh flowers. Growing up, Jake had shared a cramped apartment with Ruth, scraping by on a teacher's salary and always teaching him the value of hard work. His fingers grazed the fabric of his tailored suit, a stark contrast to his mother's humble ways. "She deserves this," he reminded himself, a smile tugging at his lips. As guests poured in, Jake felt the warmth of familiarity wrap around him. They were the same faces that had watched him grow, the same faces that held hope and dreams for their children. He could already see Ruth's joy as she greeted everyone with open arms, her laughter ringing through the evening, a melody of love and sacrifice. But just as his heart swelled with pride, the room chilled with the departure of warmth when Tiffany strolled in, late, with all the grace of a New York socialite. With her designer dress and designer attitude, she held the ability to draw attention like a moth to a flame. Yet this time, the fire felt toxic. The moment Tiffany laid eyes on Ruth, Jake's stomach twisted. "You seriously think this old-fashioned party is cute?" she scoffed, her high-pitched voice slicing through the joyous atmosphere. "So quaint. How very you." Ruth's smile faltered, confusion crossing her features. "Tiffany," she began, but Tiffany cut her off, rolling her eyes, a cocktail of disdain and entitlement. Guests shuffled uncomfortably, whispers of shock clouding the room like a gathering storm. As Ruth stood up straight, her usual warmth replaced with a steely resolve, Jake felt something changing inside him. He had always admired his mother's integrity, her ability to fight for their dignity. But now he was torn. Here was Tiffany, the woman he had envisioned a luxurious future with, and across from her stood the embodiment of his roots, the woman who had bled sweat to provide for him. Tension mounted like a gathering wave, cresting just as Ruth defended the values that had shaped Jake into the man he was today. "What I gave him was more than money, Tiffany. It was love," she declared, her voice unwavering. The hall held its breath. Jake's heart raced, tension clawing at his chest. Was he really ready to lose his future for the woman who raised him? Just as the echoes of their argument reached a threshold, a family secret slithered into his mind, waiting to be uncovered. He felt a knot tighten as he thought about what his mother had never revealed, a weight on their lineage that could tilt the very scales of his identity. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Tiffany's words grew more venomous, Jake's resolve began to crack. He stood at the crossroads, the bifurcation of wealth and values stretching before him. The pain of choice loomed larger than ever. Just then, Ruth's eyes found his, shimmering with pride and fear, silently pleading for the son she had raised to choose wisely. The moment hung heavy in the air, the laughter that once filled the carnival pastel room gone. What would he choose? Could he redefine success without letting go of all he'd achieved? Jake was at the precipice of truth, knowing that whatever decision he made would ripple through the very foundations of his life. Would he honor the strength and sacrifice of his mother's enduring love, or would the allure of wealth and glamour sway him in another direction? As he stood before them both, the question lingered like an unresolved note, electrifying the air around him with uncertainty. Jake swallowed hard, the world around him dissipating into a blur. Every noise faded, replaced by the rhythm of his racing heart. He felt trapped between the past that built him and the future that beckoned with promises of wealth. He glanced back at Ruth, whose face was a mix of hope and concern. She was his rock, the one who had given everything for him, and yet here stood Tiffany, the woman who represented the glamour he thought he wanted. "Tiffany," he finally managed, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "this party isn't about status. It's about family." The words hung there, crystal clear. To say them was liberating, but also terrifying. A hush enveloped the room. Everyone turned to listen. "But family?" Tiffany's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Really, Jake? You want to celebrate your mother like this? I mean, who wants a future that's rooted in small-town absurdities?" She waved her hand dismissively, as if swiping away the very foundation of his life. "That's where you're wrong," Jake retorted, feeling a surge of energy racing through him. "It's not absurd. It's real. It's love." Ruth's eyes glistened with unshed tears, pride coursing through her as she nodded slightly. The strife on her face softened, giving way to a flicker of joy as she let herself believe he was choosing her. "It's all about perceptions, Jake. You can have everything," Tiffany shot back. "Why settle for less? You're playing with fire if you let nostalgia dictate your choices." "Maybe it's time I embraced that fire," Jake shot back, feeling strength in his stance. Tiffany's face contorted as if slapped, taken aback by his defiance. "So this is it? You're throwing away your future for a family photo op?" The crowd had shifted. Some were leaning in closer, eyes fixed on the epic confrontation playing out before them. Jake felt the weight of their collective hope. The tension resided not only in his throat, but also in the air thick with anticipation and disbelief. "I'm figuring out what my future really means," he declared, the truth spilling forth as he looked around the room. Memories flooded him, simple family dinners, his mother as comforting guidance, the community that embraced him. He felt grounded as he spoke, each word a step back to himself. What good is a future that comes at the cost of love? A gasp rippled through the crowd. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the applause of silent encouragement. He was not alone. Tiffany's expression turned cold, and for a moment, Jake felt the sting of finality in her disapproval. "If you choose this, you're making a colossal mistake. I'd rather be wrong with love by my side than right with disregard," Jake responded, his voice firm and unyielding. A wave of murmurs coursed through the attendees as Tiffany, flustered and defeated, turned and stormed out of the community center. The door closed behind her with a heavy thud, leaving only the echo of hushed astonishment in her wake. Jake turned to Ruth, whose face was a mixture of pride and realization. Their eyes locked, a deep understanding passing between them. This moment was pivotal. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," he said quietly. Ruth stepped forward, enveloping him in an embrace. "I'd never ask you to choose," she whispered, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. "I know," he murmured against her shoulder, feeling the warmth of comfort and connection. But beside that warmth, another voice rang in his mind. The secret he had unearthed suddenly loomed larger than before. What had been lurking in the shadows of his family history began to press on his conscience. The knowledge of something hidden, something his mother had yet to reveal, now sparked a wild curiosity. He needed answers, and he was determined to uncover the truth. As Jake pulled away from Ruth, he felt a quiet determination bubbling inside him. What lay behind the curtain of their past could change everything. What would he discover next in the journey of his life? With an unsteady heart but an unwavering spirit, he set out to confront the mystery that lay ahead. Jake stepped outside, the cool night air striking him like a splash of cold water. The vibrant glow of the community center lighting felt distant now, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his mind. Every heartbeat was a reminder of the choices he had made and the path he was ready to forge, but the unanswered questions clung to him like shadows. Where had his mother hidden the truth? As he paced a path away from the gathering, his thoughts spun around the moments when he had felt her love most powerfully, the whispered bedtime stories, the picnic evenings under the stars, and the countless sacrifices she made. But there was something more layered in their shared history, something he hadn't noticed until now. "Jake!" Ruth's voice called out, her footsteps echoing behind him. He turned to find her hurrying to catch up, her face awash with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked, breathless. He nodded, but inside, a whirlwind of doubt and indecision churned. I need to know." "Know what?" she probed softly, her brown eyes flickering with empathy. He took a deep breath, wiping a hand across his forehead. "There is something about my past, about our family. I feel like there's a missing piece." Ruth's expression shifted from concern to understanding. "You mean the secret? The one your mom has never told you?" "Yeah," Jake replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "If I'm going to embrace my family and love, I need to know what has been hidden." She hesitated, then stepped closer, grounding him with her presence. "What do you think it could be?" "I don't know," he murmured, frustration building. "Maybe it's about who my father really is. Or something even deeper." Ruth's eyes softened. "What if it changes everything?" "Then I deal with it," he said, firm in his resolve. "Whatever it is, I can't build a future on a foundation of secrets. I have to face it." She touched his arm, a gentle reminder of solidarity. "I'm here for you, Jake. We'll figure this out together." Her reassurance sent warmth trickling through him, breaking through the anxiety that had settled into his chest. As they began to walk back toward the entrance of the community center, they heard raised voices. A commotion had broken out. Curiosity piqued, they rushed towards the source of the noise, finding a small group in a tense huddle. "What is going on?" Jake asked, stepping into the circle of people, his heart racing again, but this time from adrenaline. "Did you see Tiffany?" one person whispered, their face pale, as if sharing some dark news. "She was in a car crash on the way home," another piped up, urgency heavy in their tone. Jake's heart sank. He felt the weight of the world shifting beneath his feet. He turned to Ruth, searching her face for answers they had yet to find. "What if this is—" Ruth started, her voice trailing off, uncertainty filling the space between them. They stood frozen, questions swirling harder now. What was the connection? Was Tiffany's crash simply an unfortunate event, or was it a sign that their lives were forever entwined in ways they had yet to understand? "I need to know more," Jake stated, the fire in him reigniting. This could change everything. As they pushed further into the crowd, an unspoken fear gripped Jake. What would they uncover next? The mysteries of his family history were drawing near, intertwining with the doubts and the hopes he had always held close. The truth loomed ahead, tantalizing and terrifying. But how far would he have to go to grasp it? Would he be ready when it came crashing down on him? Jake and Ruth wove through the throng of onlookers, every step making his pulse race louder. The murmurs grew, a mix of concern and disbelief weaving through the crowd like storm clouds. In that moment, the world outside faded, replaced by a sense of urgency that blurred the lines of their friendship and their search for answers. "What happened? Is she all right?" Jake pressed, gripping the shoulder of an older gentleman who stood at the edge of the group. The man's brow wrinkled with worry. "No one knows yet." "But it sounded serious," he replied, glancing towards the parking lot where emergency lights flickered like stars that had fallen from the sky. Jake's heart dropped. He knew Tiffany, his childhood friend, someone who had always been there through the ups and downs. The thought of her being hurt turned his insides to ice. "I should call my mom," Ruth said, her voice trembling slightly as she fumbled for her phone. The reality of crisis sharpened her usually calm demeanor. Jake wanted to reach out, to assure her everything would be okay, but a greater fear held the words back. The crowd parted as sirens wailed closer, a chilling soundtrack to the chaos that hung in the air. Jake moved instinctively, his feet carrying him in the direction of the lot, a force drawing him forward. "Jake!" Ruth called after him, her tone a mixture of admonition and urgency. It felt wrong to dash toward despair when he should be supporting her, yet he couldn't stop himself. There were flashing lights and voices calling through the darkness. Jake's chest tightened, every breath pulling at his anxiety as he rounded the corner. He arrived just in time to see the paramedics wheeling a stretcher towards an ambulance, a futile attempt at normalcy in a scene that felt anything but. "Tiffany!" he shouted, heart hammering in his throat. Desperation stretched his voice thin, but it broke through the din, turning heads. One of the medics turned to him, a firm yet gentle expression on his face. "Back up, please. We're doing everything we can." "But is she okay?" The medic hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face. "She is stable, but we need to rush her to the hospital for further evaluation." Relief and dread collided within Jake, leaving him reeling. Stable meant she was alive, but the unknown stretched out like an endless road ahead. Ruth caught up beside him, her eyes wide with worry. "What now?" "I think we should get to the hospital. Be there when she wakes up," he replied, deciding in that moment that standing idle was not an option. It was time to act, to be there for her. They hurried towards the parking lot, hearts synchronized in rapid beats of anxiety and hope. Ruth's hand found his, and he felt a rush of warmth amidst the dread. They were in this together. In the car, the weight of their conversation about his mother, and the secrets looming in his family hovered over them. Suddenly, that seemed small compared to the potential loss of a friend. "Jake," Ruth began, her voice catching in the quiet of the vehicle. "If your mom really is hiding something, we can't let that distract us right now. Tiffany needs us." "I know," he whispered, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "But I can't shake this feeling that everything is connected somehow. What if this isn't just a random accident?" The question hung heavy between them, darkening the night that had moments ago felt vibrant and hopeful. He glanced at Ruth, her face glowing with determination even amid worry. "Then we'll face it together," she assured him, her smile a flicker of light in a dark moment. "One step at a time, Jake." As they pulled onto the main road, the hospital's faint glow came into view. Jake's thoughts churned with anticipation and dread. He was on the brink of something big, the convergence of his past and present. What was waiting for him there? Would he find the answers to his family's secrets, or was it the beginning of something far more complicated? As they parked, his heartbeat drummed louder, each thump a reminder that the truth was more than just a word. It was a journey, and it was about to unfold before him. With a deep breath, he stepped out of the car, and together with Ruth, they walked toward the looming entrance of the hospital. What awaited them inside could shatter his world or piece it together. Either way, he knew one thing for sure: the moment of truth was finally here. Would they be right on time? The hospital loomed like a fortress, its sterile glow a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Jake's mind raced as he stepped through the sliding doors, his heart heavy and full of dread. The smell of antiseptic hit him, sharp and clean, igniting a knot of anxiety deep in his stomach. Ruth moved beside him, her presence a comfort, a grounding force in the whirlwind of uncertainty. "Let us find the emergency room," Jake said, trying to sound confident. They navigated the bright, busy hallways filled with medical staff and families caught in their own moments of crisis. Every turn felt like it pulled them further into the unknown. As they approached the reception desk, a nurse glanced up, her expression professional but weary. "Can I help you?" "We're looking for Tiffany, Parker," Jake explained, his voice trembling slightly despite his efforts to remain composed. "Family only can wait in the ER lounge," she replied, her eyes darting away, thus giving valid weight to the message delivered. She's in surgery now. I'm sorry, but we can't say when you'll be able to see her. Surgery. The word echoed in Jake's ears, and for a moment, the room spun. How serious is it? He asked, desperation creeping into his voice. The doctor will provide updates as soon as they can, she assured him, without any false bravado. Ruth squeezed his hand tighter, and in that brief moment of connection, Jake felt something warm flicker in his chest, a blend of hope and fear. He wanted to urge the nurse for more information, to pull every detail from her, but he knew it wouldn't change anything. They had to wait. They made their way to the ER lounge, a stark room with uncomfortable chairs and a small coffee station. Jake sat down, the fluorescent lights buzzing around him. What if something goes wrong? The thought slipped out before he could stop it. It was out of our hands before we got here, Jake, Ruth replied softly. We have to trust the doctors. Tiffany is strong. Remember all those times she made us laugh? A small smile crept onto Jake's lips at the memory of Tiffany's infectious laughter, her ability to light up the room. But the smile quickly faded, replaced by the chill of reality. What if she doesn't wake up? He whispered, the weight of 1,000 what-ifs crashing down on him. Don't think that way. You can't. We need to focus on the positive. She's alive, Ruth said, her voice steady and confident. Yet, even as she spoke, he could see the tremor in her hands. Time crawled forward. Each minute felt like an hour as Jake tapped his foot nervously against the linoleum and glanced at the clock on the wall. He couldn't shake the sensation that something larger was at play, a dark thread tightly woven through the fabric of their lives. What if this was intentional? He muttered, almost to himself. What if someone wanted to hurt her? Ruth shot him a look of disbelief. Jake, that's a horrible thought. You can't go there. We don't know what happened, she urged. But Jake couldn't turn his mind off. He recalled the cryptic warnings from his mother about keeping Tiffany safe, and the sudden shifts in attitude of those around her. The entire situation felt off, like a puzzle missing crucial pieces. Moments later, a doctor finally appeared, his brow furrowed and his clothes a bit rumpled, marking the long hours at work. You're here for Tiffany Parker? He asked, eyes scanning their anxious faces. Yes, please. How is she? Jake's voice nearly cracked, the weight of his worries spilling out. The doctor took a deep breath. She is stable for now. We managed to repair the damage. But, that single word loomed, fragile and full of unspoken terror. There are complications we need to discuss. Jake's heart sank. He could sense the storm approaching, and just like that, everything shifted. The moment they'd been waiting for was here, but it felt more like the beginning of a new nightmare. What complications? Jake asked, urgency flooding his tone. The doctor's expression tightened as he prepared to reveal details that would change everything. Would this be the truth he feared? What would it mean for Tiffany? As uncertainty coiled around him, Jake felt the world shrinking, closing in. It was clear nothing could stay hidden anymore. And the truth might be far more shocking than he could ever imagine. The doctor hesitated, his gaze flickering between Ruth and Jake, as if measuring the weight of his words. Tiffany's injuries were extensive, and while we saved her life, her prognosis is unclear. She may face a long recovery, with potential complications that could affect her cognitive functions. Jake felt the ground shift beneath him, a horrifying abyss opening up. Cognitive functions? What do you mean? It's possible that she could experience memory loss or difficulty with speech and coordination. It's too soon to say how she'll recover, but we have to prepare for all outcomes. Each word hammered into Jake's chest like a crushing weight. No, she can't. She is so full of life, he rasped, his throat tightening. The image of Tiffany, vibrant and laughter-filled, danced in his mind, and he couldn't bear the thought of that light dimming. Ruth's hand found his again, her grip a silent promise that they wouldn't face this alone. We need to be there for her when she wakes up. She is a fighter, she said, her eyes glistening with tears. The doctor nodded. I'll keep you updated as we continue to monitor her. In the meantime, you can wait in her room. She'll be transferred there once she is stable enough. With that, he turned to head back, leaving them clutching onto flickers of hope in the wake of a storm. The waiting felt like an eternity, but they followed the doctor's lead and found their way to the small room adorned with machinery that beeped and buzzed in unnerving harmony. The starkness of the hospital room felt jarring. There lay Tiffany, pale and still, bandages wrapped around her head, tubes connected to monitors that displayed her pulse and other vital signs. Jake's breath hitched in his throat. Here she was, the person who had turned their mundane lives into something magical. Tiff, he whispered, stepping closer, it's me, it's Jake. Her eyelids fluttered ever so slightly, as if she could feel his presence lingering near her. Stay strong for us, he murmured, a tear catching on the edge of his lashes. Ruth squeezed his arm and took a step toward the bed, her own choked breath breaking the silence. We're right here, Tiffany. We love you. There was a flicker of a response, just a twitch in Tiffany's fingers, but it gave Jake a spark of hope. She could hear them. They were connected, no matter the distance between life and the shadows she was caught in. But doubt seeped in again, creeping through the cracks of his resolve. How had this happened? Had someone targeted her? What if this was just a tragic accident? What do we do now? He asked, voice barely above a whisper, afraid to break the fragile moment. Ruth sighed, running her fingers through her hair in tumult. We look into this. We need to find out the truth. Someone must know what happened. Jake nodded, determination brewing within him, but the knot in his stomach refused to loosen. They had seen the worst, but they were ready to face whatever lurked beyond the hospital walls. Yet, just as he braced himself for the battle ahead, a figure stepped hesitantly into the room. It was a woman he didn't recognize, her face pale and shadowed with worry, clutching a bag tightly. "Excuse me," she croaked, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you about Tiffany." Jake's heart pounded in his chest. Who was she? What did she know? Answers began to swirl in his mind like a storm, and the air thickened with tension. What truth was about to be revealed? The woman stepped closer, her eyes darting between Jake and Ruth, a mix of fear and urgency etched on her face. Jake could feel Ruth's grip tighten around his arm, her anxious energy radiating through him. "Who are you?" Jake managed to ask, his throat still dry with apprehension. "My name is Lisa," the woman replied, trembling. I was there when Tiffany was attacked. I saw everything." "What do you mean you saw everything?" Ruth's voice was sharp, a defensive armor forming around her, ready to shield them both from whatever chaos was ahead. The woman swallowed hard, her gaze dropping to the floor, then back up again. "It's not safe here." I didn't want to speak in front of everyone. She hesitated, glancing back down the hallway. "Could we talk somewhere private?" Jake exchanged a quick look with Ruth. She nodded slightly, urging him on, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Okay," he said, his own pulse racing. "Let us step outside." They all moved into the dimly lit corridor, where the sounds of machines faded into the background. The air felt heavy with silent mourning and hope as they leaned against a wall, away from prying ears. Lisa took a deep breath, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "I was walking home from my shift at the cafe when I saw two men accost Tiffany. They were arguing, and then things turned violent. I wasn't close enough to hear what they were saying, but it was clear she was scared." Jake felt a cold chill run down his spine, the word scared cutting through him like ice. "Did you see their faces?" "Who were they?" Lisa shook her head. "No, it all happened so fast. I just remember one of them pushing her, and the other one, He had something in his hands. What was it? Ruth interjected, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a knife, Lisa replied, her voice shaking. But they ran off before I could do anything. I tried to catch up, but I lost them in the alley. Jake's hands clenched into fists, rage mixing with terror. Why didn't you tell the police? I was scared too. I didn't want to get involved. But then I heard about what happened to her, and I couldn't stay quiet. I'd feel horrible if something worse happened. What do you think they wanted? Was it random? Ruth asked, worry coating her words. Knowing that kind of anger doesn't come from nowhere, Lisa said, her voice softening. Maybe it had to do with something she was involved in. I just had this gut feeling that it wasn't just an attack, it felt like a message. Jake's heart raced again, the thought tumbling through his mind like a freight train. Had someone really targeted Tiffany? Do you know where they went? I thought I might recognize them if I saw them again, but Lisa paused, her expression turning heavy. It wasn't just that. There is more I can't explain. There is something else. I found something at the scene after the attack. What is it? Ruth leaned in, desperate for answers, the tension thick between them. Lisa reached into her bag and pulled out a small object, wrapped in a square of tissue. She held it out, her hand shaking so bad it was a miracle she didn't drop it. I think this belonged to one of them. Jake's pulse quickened as he unwrapped the item slowly. Inside, he found a silver pendant with an intricate design. His heart dropped. Something about it felt familiar, like a nightmarish echo of his past. What does this mean? He whispered, gripping the pendant tightly, astonished by the implications. And as he looked up at Lisa, he saw a dawning realization in her eyes. The truth was about to unravel, but it also meant stepping into a dark world they had never anticipated. Someone knows the whole story, she said, her voice trembling with fear. And they won't stop until they silence us too. Jake's heart raced even faster, knowing they were in deep. What did they just stumble into? What had Tiffany gotten herself mixed up in? As darkness began to paint the edges of their reality, the question hung heavy in the air: would they be able to uncover the truth before it was too late? The shock of revelation hung between them, thick and suffocating. Jake glanced at Ruth, her brows furrowed, teeth biting down on her lip. He could sense her uncertainty, matching his own swirling storm of anxiety. What do you mean, silence us? Jake asked, a tremor in his voice. Lisa's eyes widened, fear reflecting deep within them. I didn't want to believe it, but I overheard something before I left the scene. Two voices arguing. One of them mentioned Tiffany's name, said it was time to teach her a lesson. It felt personal. Jake felt the heat rise from his stomach to his chest. The sweet memories of Tiffany blurred with the raw image of her being beaten down. This isn't just some random mugging, is it? Someone wanted her hurt. No, Lisa whispered, shaking her head. And I'm scared they might come after anyone who tries to speak up. They know I saw them. A bead of sweat trickled down Jake's temple. He couldn't shake off the dread creeping into his bones. He wanted to scream, to act, to drag the shadow of fear into the light. But would it lead to Tiffany's revenge or her undoing? I can't just stand by. We can't all just wait for something bad to happen again. There has to be a way to keep her safe, Ruth said, her voice steady but edged with desperation. You don't understand, Lisa replied, her voice cracking. I thought maybe if I went to the police, but then I realized they could easily find out who I was. I felt trapped. Then what do we do? Jake asked. The weight of the pendant in his pocket felt like a reminder of his own past, a past he had tried to escape. There's a group of us who know something. We could meet in a safe place to talk. Maybe if we band together, we could figure something out to help Tiffany and protect ourselves. Jake held his breath, the idea resonating like a drum in his chest. But who could they trust? The thought of being exposed sent shivers racing down his spine. Where would we even meet? Do you remember the old library downtown? The one that has been closed for renovations? Lisa suggested, her eyes darting around, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. It's out of the way, secluded. If we're careful, we might be able to pull together what we need. Let us do it, Ruth agreed immediately, her voice firm against the fear. We need to figure this out. For Tiffany. But as Jake nodded, an ominous thought settled over him like fog. He felt the weight of the pendant pressing against his leg, a constant reminder of the darkness they would soon dive into. Okay, but we need to be smart about this. We can't lead them straight to us. Lisa's gaze softened, an understanding forming as she glanced at the two of them, searching for a shared resolve. I'll do everything I can to help. I want to make this right. As they began to discuss the details, the air around them crackled with determination and fear. Each plan they sketched felt precarious, hanging by a thread of uncertainty. Jake started to wonder what if this was leading them directly into a trap. What if they were becoming the very targets they feared? The thought gnawed at him, but he couldn't let it rule him. Not now. Just promise me we'll be careful, Jake insisted, and as he spoke, he searched their faces for assurance. No one needs to get hurt again. They exchanged shaky nods, but uncertainty lingered in the air. In that moment, Jake felt a decisive shift, like a door swinging wide, revealing a dark, twisting hallway ahead. One step into the unknown could change their destiny forever. The question loomed large now: would they emerge with answers or disappear into the shadows, even deeper than before? The meeting at the old library was set for Saturday evening, just after sunset. There was an urgency in the air that made Jake restless. He felt the weight of every passing hour like a clock ticking down, a countdown to something that could either save them or break them apart. As Saturday approached, strange unease gripped him. Each creak of the floorboards at his house made his heart skip. He tried to focus on his studies, but found himself staring out the window, watching people pass by. A couple laughed, a child chased a dog. Life seemed so normal. It both comforted and tormented him. Didn't they know what had happened? Didn't they feel the shadows creeping in? Finally, the day arrived. The streetlights flickered to life as they started gathering. Lisa was the first to arrive, looking around nervously before slipping inside. Ruth followed, her confidence bright yet laced with apprehension. Jake was last, glancing back, each step feeling heavier than the last. The library stood proud yet forlorn, its windows dark except for the glow of their cell phones illuminating the crumbling interior. Dust drifted through the air, lit by the shafts of light that managed to filter in. The whole place felt like a time capsule, frozen in past stories, now filled with their own urgent narrative. "Are we really sure about this?" Jake asked, voice low, echoing off the walls as they sat near a table surrounded by weathered books. "What if we're just walking into danger? We won't know unless we try," Ruth asserted, her eyes sparkling with resolve. Lisa nodded, though her hands trembled on the table. Minutes passed like hours as they waited. Each tick of Jake's watch felt like a drumbeat of anxiety. Then, the sound of footsteps echoed down the empty aisles. Heavy, cautious, unsettling. Jake's heart raced as a shadow appeared, bold against the muted backdrop. It was David, one of the few they had shared their fears with, a friend who had proven trustworthy before. But now, there was something different about him. He looked unsettled, darting glances over his shoulder. "What is wrong?" Lisa asked, glancing back toward the entrance, her anxious eyes wide. David ran a hand through his hair, his voice low and urgent. "We need to move. I spoke to someone earlier who might know more. They mentioned there are eyes everywhere, and they know about tonight. We don't have much time." Panic shot through Jake, twisting in his gut. Who knows? "I can't say too much here," David continued, glancing nervously around. But this isn't just affecting Tiffany. There's a bigger game being played, some very powerful people involved. Ruth leaned in closer. What does that mean for us? Are we in danger? Yes. David's voice trembled slightly. And if we don't act now, we might lose our chance at finding the answers or keeping Tiffany safe. Silence enveloped them, the reality of danger heavier than the dust that hung in the air. Jake's mind raced. They had been so focused on Tiffany, they hadn't considered what was really at stake. Fear wrapped around him, a noose pulling tighter. Then what do we do? Jake asked, determination igniting in his chest. David took a breath, grim but steady. I have a plan. There's a place, a hidden location. We can meet there and gather information, but we have to leave now. Ruth looked at Jake, her brows creased with concern, but her heart clearly made up. We can't give up on her or ourselves. We have to trust David. Before he could respond, the shattering sound of glass echoed through the library, a window breaking, shaking him to his core. I'll explain on the way, David urged, his voice urgent. We have to move now. A surge of adrenaline hit Jake, and he was flooded with conflicting emotions, resilience, fear, and a deep longing to fight for everyone they cared about. They bolted from the table, heart racing into the unknown. As they reached the exit, another crash sent them running. Outside, shadows gathered, and the air felt electric with danger. Just as they turned the corner, Ruth gasped, pointing ahead. Jake! Look out! The moment of truth was upon them, but would it be salvation or destruction? Jake's heart thudded painfully in his chest as he turned to see two figures looming in the shadows, their faces obscured. The frigid air hung heavy with fear, pulling at his instincts to flee. But in that moment, something fierce ignited within him, a primal urge to protect those he loved. Run! David shouted, shattering the tension, and without another thought, they bolted down the alley, adrenaline pushing them faster than fear had ever held them back. The sound of pounding footsteps chased them, their breaths mingled with the rush of chaotic thoughts. What do we do? Ruth yelled, glancing back. They're going to catch us. Just keep going. Don't look back. Jake shouted, determination thrumming through him. Images of Tiffany, broken yet fighting, flickered in his mind. He couldn't let her down. They skidded to a stop at the end of the alley, faced with a looming brick wall. There was no way forward. It felt like they'd hit a dead end. Panic clawed at Jake's throat as he turned to David, eyes wide with desperation. What now? Up! David shouted, pointing to a fire-escape ladder hanging precariously down. Without thinking, Jake hoisted Ruth up first, instinctively guiding her hands to grip tightly. Climb! Ruth scrambled up the rungs, fear and determination lining her face. Jake followed closely, adrenaline propelling him higher. He could hear the heavy thuds of footsteps growing closer, the shadows of their pursuers weaving through the alley now. Every muscle in his body screamed to hurry, and as Jake reached the top, he pulled Ruth onto the rooftop, where the night sky opened wide above them, thick with stars. Breathing heavily, they peer over the edge of the building. What do we do now? Jake panted, searching for answers in Ruth's frantic gaze. We need to find a way to expose what is happening, to keep Tiffany safe. There must be proof somewhere, Ruth urged, her eyes aflame with resolve. Let us head to the library, David suggested, his voice steady despite the chaos. Maybe there is something in the sealed-off area. If they're powerful enough, they might have left a trail. They climbed across the rooftops, moving from building to building, every creak and rustle sparking renewed fear of discovery. But as they reached the old library, a strange quiet settled, wrapping them in a blanket of anticipation. They entered through a side door, the air thick with the scent of dust and history. Where could they be hiding something? Jake mused, scanning the dimly lit room, stacked high with forgotten tomes. Look for anything that seems out of place, Ruth whispered, examining the shelves. They might have hidden information here. As they searched, Jake's heart raced like a drum echoing through the cavernous silence. He pulled at the loose floorboards, hoping for secrets beneath. Moments later, a soft sound caught his attention, an echo of voices behind a wall. They pressed their ears against the dusty paneling. "It's tonight, right?" One voice hissed, laden with malice. "We can't leave any loose ends." Jake felt his blood run cold. Were they planning to silence Tiffany for good? He motioned for Ruth and David to stay quiet, his mind racing with possibilities. They had to find a way to stop this. "Let us find something to barricade the door," David suggested, fear tightening his throat. They scrambled together, dragging heavy books and furniture across the door, just as the voices grew louder. "Get it done, or there will be consequences." The men's anger thrummed in the air, palpable and terrifying. Ruth gulped, her eyes widening. "What do they mean by consequences?" "We need to find a way to get out of here," Jake whispered fiercely. "We need proof, and we have to warn Tiffany. Whatever they've got planned for tonight, we can't let it happen." The tension in the air intensified, and just as they formulated their next steps, the door slammed open, breaking the fragile silence. The hooded figures from earlier staggered in, shock etched across their faces as they registered the scene before them. "They're here! Get them!" Panic erupted, their voices multiplied into a fray of chaos. Jake felt the adrenaline spike in his veins as he turned, racing towards an open window on the opposite side. "Go! Go! Out!" In a split second, they dove through the window, hitting the ground below in a thick pile of leaves and debris, the cool air raging around them. "Over there!" a voice shouted, echoing through the street. They scrambled to their feet, racing into the night, hearts racing against the cadence of fear. "Where do we go?" Ruth gasped, winded. "We can't keep running." "Back to my house," Jake exclaimed, determination igniting in him. "It's closer, and we can figure out our next steps." They sprinted through the streets, the world morphing around them as adrenaline fueled their legs. With each step, Jake knew they were running for both Tiffany and their own lives. They burst through his front door, slamming it shut and locking it tight. Ruth leaned against the wall, panting, her face pale but resolved. "Now what?" she asked, eyes wide with fear. Jake glanced around, his heart pounding. "We find that pendant, and we dig up the truth. We need to gather evidence that will expose them, their names, whatever information we can find." Hours later, under the flickering glow of his desk lamp, they pieced together clues. Jake felt the weight of his past entwined with every discovery. The family secrets that had colored his existence now merged with the danger that lay ahead. Hunched over the table, they could sense the storm brewing. "Together," Jake murmured, fueled by a shared determination, "we can take it down." As dawn began to break, painting the sky in shades of hope, they had created a plan steeped in danger yet colorful with a promise of salvation. When they sifted through their memories, woven together by love, friendship, and undying loyalty, Jake felt a sense of completeness. The clarity that drew them together was now pulling them through the darkness. They were ready to face whatever awaited them. The truth was no longer hiding. It was on the precipice of revelation. The rush of adrenaline intertwined with hope felt euphoric. Their mission stretched ahead, a confrontation that would either shatter their lives or build a bridge to freedom. But first, they had to face the storm. The stakes had never been higher, but together, they would transform fear into strength. Together, they would fight for Tiffany and their futures, confident that love and loyalty would guide them through even the darkest night. This was only the beginning. Now it was time to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next thrilling chapter in their fight for justice. Hit that like button now to fuel this journey. Comment below your thoughts on this intense turning point. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to join this transformation. This is your moment to show unwavering support. Don't wait, not even one more second.